Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Certainly an auspicious day. I know I say that every Sunday, but I guess in the Buddhist tradition, every day is auspicious. Just the joy of being, just the joy of being. We can stop right there, right? Of course, we are celebrating a number of things today. We are celebrating Vesak. Now, for those of you that are still a little bit newer to various different Buddhist practices, Vesak, and I'm going to talk about that today in the talk, so I'm not going to go too deep in it right now, but it's technically on the first full moon here in May. So it was Thursday night, and I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but it was pretty spectacular because we had such a clear evening, and it was quite lovely. And so it was celebrated Thursday, but of course we celebrate it wherever we can. And so we celebrated it while we were on retreat on Saturday, last Saturday, and then we'll celebrate it today as a Sangha here today, Sunday. And many thanks to Chelsea, who, she was here a minute ago, I don't know where she went. Oh, there you are. Chelsea has made for us some delicious Vesak cakes, and those are going to be downstairs, as well as torma muffins. Torma just simply means celebratory pastries. So there are torma muffins downstairs, and as you see, we've got a few balloons and things spread around. So again, happy Vesak to everyone. And of course, we are also celebrating Memorial Day. And Memorial Day is an occasion for both grief and celebration, reflecting on the loss of life and recounting the courageousness of military service. For those who have served, the day holds the utmost significance while giving our country the opportunity to pay tribute and remember the lives that have been lost in defense of our nation. And ceremonies are an important part, but our gratitude has to be more than visits to grave sites or once a year Memorial Day ceremonies. We honor the dead best by treating the living well. And so we honor that Memorial Day, and certainly take a moment of silence right now to remember all of those who, past, present, and future, who dedicate their lives to taking care of and procuring the safety of our nation and our values and our way of living. Thank you so much for that. And so now let's talk about our Vesak celebration. Every Buddhist culture has its own traditions for the day, and it is celebrated in many different countries all around the world: India, Thailand, North and South Korea, so many, many more, Myanmar, India, just many places, of course. And so Vesak commemorates the birth and also the awakening, the years, 40 some odd years spent teaching, and also the transition of Siddhartha Gautama. That is the name of the person that we all call the Buddha, but Buddha simply means enlightened one. And in many traditions, we are all Buddhas. We are waking up to our Buddha nature. And so this is why the Buddha did not teach happiness and joy and freedom. The Buddha taught the cessation of suffering, because we already are all those things. It is the suffering that makes it difficult for us to realize and to become aware of our Buddha nature. And so we celebrate all of Siddhartha Gautama and the enlightenment of the Buddha. And on this day, many Buddhists will go to their local temple, and there will be cake and pastries and celebrations. They might even stay throughout the night, and they might do things like kirtan or chanting or meditation, Dharma talks. All these kinds of activities are going on all over the world today. So doesn't it feel good to share that with just So many thousands and millions of practitioners all around the world celebrating this universal message of peace. And so many Buddhists will go and do good deeds. They might work at they might serve at a kitchen, a soup kitchen, or they might go clean up a park. They send cards to each other. They'll do, like I said, chanting and meditation. Oftentimes they will sometimes just break open Dharma books, and they will share those with their friends, the teachings with the family, and the Dharma teachings themselves. And so families may decorate their homes with lanterns or balloons, or they will take part in processions. It is truly a joyous celebration. There is a ceremony called the bathing of the Buddha, which in this particular ceremony, water is poured over the shoulders of the baby Buddha to remind people to clear their minds of negative thoughts like greed and hatred. So it's not a literal bathing of the Buddha. It's more of a cleansing of all beings in all places of the poisons of negativity, of greed and fear and hatred. And so the significance of Vesak lies, again, with the Buddha and his message of universal peace. So as we recall the Buddha and his enlightenment, we are immediately reminded of the unique and most profound knowledge and insight which arose in Siddhartha Gautama on the night of his enlightenment. This coincides with three very important events which took place, and these are known as the 3 watches. The 3 watches. So as the Buddha sat underneath the Bodhi tree throughout the night is broken into the 3 watches. During the first watch, when Siddhartha Gautama, when his mind was calm and clear and purified, a light arose within him. Knowledge and insight arose within him. He saw his previous lives, first 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 10, and multiples of 20 and 50, and so on and so forth. And so that was the first watch of the evening. During the second watch of the evening, as Siddhartha went on with his practice, during the second watch of the night, he saw how beings die and are reborn in this constant cycle of birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. And depending on their karma, how they disappear and reappear from one form to another, from one plane of existence to another, as a reminder that in the Buddhist practice, the opposite of death is not life. Life is eternal. The opposite of death is birth. Birth, death, in this samsaric circle based upon karma. And so that was the second watch of the evening. On the third watch, during the final watch of the night, Siddhartha Gautama saw the arising and cessation of all phenomena, mental, physical. He saw how things arose dependent on causes and conditions. In other words, he saw that there is not one cause, there's not someone or something to blame, yet it is thousands of variables, all kinds of causes and conditions that when in time they all arrange just right, Victor is born, or a flower grows, or a little ring of mushrooms occurs in your front yard, or a storm blows and branches are broken. So it is about causes and conditions, and there are many. So it helps us to understand when we collapse down onto blame around one person, it helps us to realize that that is not accurate. There are thousands of variables. Many causes and conditions have come together in just the right moment in time, in just the right place in all of the universe for an experience to occur. This wisdom and light that radiated under the historic Bodhi tree at Bodh Gaya in the district of Bihar in northern India more than 2,500 years ago is of great significance to human destiny. It illuminated the way by which mankind could cross over from a world of superstition and hatred and fear to a new world of light, love, and happiness. The heart of the teachings of the Buddha is contained in the teachings of the Four Noble Truths, namely, the first noble truth of dukkha, that there is an unsatisfactory quality to life. This is that suffering that we are going through. These are the symptoms. The second noble truth is the origin or the cause of suffering. This is the craving that as human beings we attach, or we spend all of our time trying to avoid. So attachment and aversion. And so this is the diagnosis. And then the third noble truth is the end or the cessation of suffering. And this is the prognosis. And finally, the fourth noble truth is the path which leads to the cessation of all suffering, and this is the prescription. So it's always laid out like a doctor's visit. And so I want to transition from just a little basics of Buddhism here into the idea of taking refuge. It is this idea of taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the refuge prayer that we recited 3 times for those 3 jewels. The idea of taking refuge is both very simple and very deep. On one level, it simply means to take shelter or protection from the danger, from the trouble and the suffering of human life, both our current and future lives, by turning to the Buddha, the Dharma or the teachings, and to the community, our spiritual community, practitioners. In a sense, the act of taking refuge is what distinguishes Buddhists from non-Buddhists. We take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. On another level, however, taking refuge is the first step on the path to enlightenment. As taught by Atisha in the year, basically 1000 AD, a great Buddhist master who traveled and taught in Tibet and who is sometimes referred to as the Refuge Lama. The Tibetan refuge prayer, also called by Atisha the prayer of refuge. It is not entirely clear if Atisha actually wrote the prayer or if it simply he has become associated with it because of his devotion to teaching people, thousands and thousands of people, thousands of years ago, how to take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And so this teaching, this taking refuge, when a person takes refuge, it is one who takes refuge is one who wishes to attain enlightenment by following the Buddha as her guide, to attain by following the Dharma as her path, and by following the Sangha as her traveling companions to attain enlightenment. A medical analogy is often used. The Buddha is the great doctor. The Dharma is the medicine, and the Sangha is the nurse. We are the patient, and the cure is taking the medicine, which means practicing the techniques and the methods spelled out for us in all of the teachings, in following the Noble Eightfold Path, in working with our meditation methods and techniques. All of these things, taking refuge is like unpacking the medicine and deciding to follow the doctor's advice. And so that's kind of why those little bottles with the caps that you can never get off are such good practice. Patience, patience. Practice, practice. So to take refuge in the Buddha is to take refuge in someone who has let go of holding back, just as you can do. The Buddha said, "Do not worship me. I am not a god. I am just a person that woke up, and you can do it too. Here is how." And then spent 40 years and dedicated his life, a heart of service, to helping people overcome the trials and tribulations of the worldly life and learn to identify and realize that we can follow the spiritual life, to realize that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, not the other way around. And so to take refuge in the Dharma is to take refuge in all of the teachings that encourage us, that nurture our inherent ability to let go of those things that we have become attached to, whether that is worldly things, pain and pleasure, gain and loss, fame and insignificance, joy and sorrow, whether it is letting go of attachments to an idea, a role, mom, dad, brother, sister, director of the Temple Buddhist Center, whatever those roles are that are not necessary in certain contexts and situations, and yet we cling to them oftentimes. So whether it is the worldly factors or whether it is attachment to paradigms, ideas, cultural shifts and values, all these different things, remember, Dharma has two meanings. It is the teachings written down for us by our teachers, but it is also, Dharma means the truth of this moment. In other words, our experience is our greatest teacher. And when we can wake up to the truth of this moment exactly as it is, seeing it as it is, instead of seeing this moment as we are, we find true liberation and freedom. And finally, to take refuge in the Sangha, our spiritual community, is to take refuge in the community of people who share this longing to let go and open rather than to close and shield ourselves. That's an echo chamber. That's very different. A Sangha is a community of practitioners that understand that you are doing your work and that I am doing my work, and we can do it together, but only we can do our own work. And so the support that we give each other as practitioners is not the usual samsaric or worldly support in which we all join together on the same team and we complain about the other team, and then we rally the troops against some perceived idea or harm or cause. It is more, in this case, it is more that we are each individually on our own, bringing awareness to this experience, and simultaneously, it is helpful to know that there are 85 other people who are practicing, who are bringing awareness to what it is that arises, and then purifying fear, greed, hatred, and delusion. And in this way, the rising tide lifts all boats. We can support each other in a much more authentic and true meaning of support. Not supporting unwholesome thought patterns, but yet seeing the light of who you are, even when you can no longer see your light because you're caught up in some anger, some revenge, some depression, some meanness. When we get caught up in those, because we recognize that, we see that, it's part of being human, we can truly be of support by oftentimes just being with each other in the silence, because that's where the work is done. And so, through conscious conversations with each other, we support and encourage. Even though other people can give you support, you still must do it yourself. And that's how we grow through this process, rather than becoming more dependent on some institution or some group to give us the feel-goods that we're looking for. Instead, we can find it individually together. Remember, the 3 jewels are not outside of us. We are the 3 jewels of the Buddhist practice. And so I want to close with this poem by John O'Donohue, Blessing the Space Between Us. Is the title of the book that this poem came from. You have traveled too fast over false ground. Now your soul is catching up with you. Take refuge in your senses. Open up. Open to all the small miracles that you had previously rushed through. Become inclined to watch the way of rain. When it falls slow and freely, imitate the habit of twilight, taking time to open the well of color within you that fosters the brightness of day. Draw alongside the silence of a stone until its calmness can claim you. Welcome home.